Hello, Steve Wilson from Grand Junction, Colorado. You know, nutrition and baseball are so comparable. You just need to take a look at this whole scenario about a hitter, which is you, because you're going to be delivered pitches that talk about nutrition and how good it looks. And the whole object of this battery called a pitcher and a catcher, they're studying you to find out what you're liable to swing after, the bad pitches that you're liable to take on, and then of course there's the umpire. And he's there to determine the game. And he's calling balls and strikes based on the laws that he's been given. Well, as I take you back into this thing, and it's not too far, let me take you back to Galileo. Galileo was a fellow that looked at this whole thing and said, you know, the Earth is not the center of our galaxy. And he challenged the powers that be, and they scoffed at him because he mentioned that the Earth rotates around the sun. Well, that was an interesting scenario. And all at once, that little change began a series of thought patterns that takes us to where we are today. Then there came a fellow by the name of Faraday. Faraday was a very interesting guy because he talked about magnetism. And he was the first one that really discussed the world of magnetism in our body. And then along behind him, a guy by the name of Maxwell. And he was the one that really exploded the concept of quantum physics because he saw that we were an electromagnetic being. And therefore, we are made up of atoms. And that really makes a serious case for where we are today because the atom is only 1% mass. And if you carry that out to the craziest area, then being 1% mass, then you are 1% mass as a body. Then along came Einstein. And he furthered the cause further with his equation, E equals mc squared, meaning the energy of the body is equal to the mass squared by the speed of light. Well, that begins our story because you see, that makes us a body of frequencies and wavelengths and vibrations. And the way you measure that is in megahertz. But what our culture has done is since they literally took the nutrients out in 1938, and replace them with synthetic vitamins made from principally coal tar. And by the way, they're made in China. Along with that, inorganic salts, meaning they're dead, they have a zero frequency. So when you put these things into your body under the guise that at that time, science was saying there was no difference between a synthetic vitamin and that was organic. And now we know that to be substantially different. Well, so here's how the whole thing looks. And I want you to understand that a gram or a milligram of something that's inorganic weighs the same as a gram or milligram of something that's alive. But you see, that's not the way the body measures things. It measures them in megahertz, kilohertz. And so we have this strike zone. Now we know from studies that the body functions from the brain up in a megahertz speed of 70 to 90. And that's important because we have to eat foods that deliver that kind of speed in the brain. And from the neck down, we function between 60 and 70 megahertz. And now we know that disease functions below that, around 50. So if we look at this and begin to understand that as you lower the frequency of the body, then you're lowering the resistance to good health. And with that, we have finally figured out that cold symptoms and flu syndromes function around 50. So as your body lowers its frequency to these areas, you've invited disease to move into your body. That's a different scenario then looking at milligrams by weight versus frequencies, it's an entirely different story. Once you've figured that out, you can control your body, how it functions in the diseases that are there or not there are because you're buying according to frequencies. What a breakthrough. And it took me a number of years to figure this whole thing out. Because you see, quantum physics, quantum mechanics, moving into quantum nutrition is a very interesting breakthrough for me, because now it tells you and I that these foods that we eat are our immune system. If we take them and get your body in a frequency mode that's healthy, the body will take care of itself, will ward off the diseases, and you've created your own protection system. And how did that work? Well, let me take you back to a couple of really gorgeous women, Brigitte Bardot and Bo Derek, about the same time frame. And you can see that both of these women were extraordinarily beautiful. But out of the very, very beginning, you can declare the end. Brigitte Bardot probably lived the lifestyle that was really fast. And I read the lifestyle of Bo Derek. She was quiet, didn't want to be a sex model. All she wanted to do was live, and she created a very incredible life zone for herself. And you can see the end results of that in her late 60s, where she is today. Well, how did all that happen? Well, she maybe did or did not understand, but she ate accordingly, and her lifestyle is substantially different. Well, let me introduce you to a guy by the name of Dr. Lackey, who wanted to live on the Gulf where all the storms came through. And he went down and he looked at the particular measurements on where these storms and what speeds the wind really blew, and how difficult it was to meet those requirements. Well, in doing so, he engineered a home that cost him 20% more than it did to meet the requirements, the building codes of that area. And then here came Andrew, and it went roaring through that part of the world, destroying everything around it except for his home. And that was interesting, because this tells the story of what we want to discuss is, once you understand and take charge of your life and understand how to buy foods that are alive rather than foods that are dead, highly processed, canned, and fast foods, which lowers the overall frequency of your body, changes your attitude, changes your performance. If you understood that, you would buy entirely different, particularly for your children, because now there is a substantial relationship between the attitude of a child that's in balance, whereas the frequencies of his body are in tune. He lives in peace. That's what the message that we would like to discuss, and we're going to show you exactly how to get there. Steve Wilson, thenefeshenergy.com.